A final from the Rose Bowl where it was bonkers. Ohio State wins it 48-45. And look, I'm going to be honest with you right now. We can't show you highlights because of restrictions, so this is what we can do. We can tell you the story. You can close your eyes. Hopefully you watch the game. I'm just going to give you a quick audio version of what happened. Ohio State and Utah put on a show. They combined for 5 touchdowns in a 3-minute stretch in the second quarter with 4 scorers going for longer than 50 yards. Then it was tied at 38 in the fourth quarter. C.J. Stroud tossed a 30-yard touchdown to Jackson Smith-Njigba. Utah answered with starter Cameron Rising knocked out of the game. Freshman walk-on Bryson Barnes, Bryson Barnes tossed the game-tying touchdown. He had never attempted a pass, but it was short-lived as Ohio State drove down the field, kicked a game-winning field goal with 9 seconds left to win it 48-45. Game went well over the total. They had 93 points. The total was 64.5. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave skipping the Rose Bowl, prepare for the NFL draft. So sophomore Jackson Smith-Njigba and C.J. Stroud had historic days. Stroud set a Rose Bowl record, 572 passing yards, 6 touchdowns. Jackson Smith-Njigba had 15 catches for a Rose Bowl record, 346 yards and 3 touchdowns. Also taking advantage of Olave and Garrett Wilson not in the picture. Freshman Marvin Harrison Jr., yes, the son of the Hall of Famer, had 3 touchdown catches as well for the Buckeyes. Also, if you were scoring at home, like let's say you had Jackson Smith-Njigba on your fantasy team, he won you your game. 67 points in fantasy for Jackson Smith-Njigba. Welcome in two-time Super Bowl champ Bryant McFadden and the host of the Cover 3 podcast, CBS Sports HQ college football analyst Chip Patterson. B-Mac, where do you want to start? You want to start with C.J. Stroud, Jackson Smith-Njigba, or Bryson Barnes, who had never attempted a pass, who tied this game up for Utah?
Smith-Njigba. Let's start with the new up-and-coming superstar wide receiver for Ohio State. Remember, the big talk regarding their offense was no Olave, no Garrett Wilson. How will they be able to generate production in the passing game? Well, Smith-Njigba said, you know what, you might not know exactly who I am right now, but when it's all said and done, the entire nation will know who I am. You talked about his numbers, 15 catches for 347. 3 touchdowns. He could have had a fourth, but remember, he fumbled the football trying to score another touchdown in the first half. He was amazing. I've never seen this type of wide receiver performance on any level of football. I can't even do that on a video game. And I'm pretty good when it comes to playing video games. When you talk about playing football, I can't create those numbers playing a video game. He had the game of a lifetime. And I can tell you this much. When you look at Ohio State, looking at some of the key contributors they're losing from this past year's team, the future is extremely bright because you can easily say you got you a Biletnikoff Award type guy in Smith-Njigba, and don't forget about the Heisman candidate and C.J. Stroud once again. So huge day for their offense, but man, Smith-Njigba will be talked about from here on to the year 3000.
Yeah, that's why no one was really that concerned when we had the opt-outs from Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson, because the backups for Ohio State could be starters anywhere else. And if you need an example, let me remind you that Jameson Williams, the best wide receiver for Alabama, who will be playing in the national championship game, transferred from Ohio State because he could not see the field in this wide receiver room. It is absolutely bananas the talent they have here. Jackson Smith-Njigba was actually the leading receiver. Now, Chris Olave missed some time, Garrett Wilson missed some time. You could say that there's some reasons behind that, but the point is that Ryan Day knew that what he had with this offense, as long as C.J. Stroud was going to be in the lineup, was going to be up to par and up to the standard of what we expect from the Ohio State offense. And so for Jackson Smith-Njigba to show out in this spot, I absolutely love it, but I also want to make sure that we point our attention to Marvin Harrison Jr. and those 3 touchdown catches that he had as well, because C.J. Stroud, Jackson Smith-Njigba, Marvin Harrison Jr. Julian Fleming got a little bit banged up in this game. I'm concerned about that specifically, but in the bigger picture, Ohio State's passing attack is going absolutely nowhere. And after this Rose Bowl win, we're talking about a team that will be in the top 3 of the preseason polls of next season.
It's a season of what could have been, right? Like, let's go back to the Michigan game. And look, I'm not going to live in the past, but I'm going to live in the past for just right now. If that game's played indoors or anywhere else where it's like not minus 20, Okay, I'm a little bit excessive there, okay? But if they're playing that game somewhere else, Ohio State beats Michigan, beats Iowa in the Big Ten title game, and they probably give Georgia a run for their money, if not beat Georgia and get back to the national championship. Right, Chip? You agree with me. You're on board with this.
Oh, listen, if you want to play what if Ohio State beats Oregon, Cincinnati doesn't go to the college football playoff. If Ohio State beats Oregon, then Ohio State and Michigan are both in the college football playoff with Alabama and Georgia. The what-if game is going to be all about what happened with the Buckeyes this season, and it's going to go one of two ways, because all of it loads in the expectations for C.J. Stroud, for Jackson Smith-Njigba, for running back TreVeyon Henderson, who's been an absolute monster all season, for Marvin Harrison Jr. We go into next season after this Rose Bowl win, and we're thinking Ohio State, college football playoff or bust. National championship, you better be contending for it. This game, for me, as we spin it forward, is all about the expectations and the youth movement in Columbus. Like, the what-ifs only make our expectations higher for what we want to see from this group in the 2022 season.
B-Mac, what did this win mean for Ryan Day and Ohio State?
He just continues to add to his resume as one of the more productive coaches, not just in the Big Ten, but in college football. And when you look at when it comes to recruiting, there's no issue recruiting kids that come to Columbus. But this was a huge opportunity to continue to tell recruits, if you want to perform at the highest level, if you want an opportunity to be seen on a national stage, get national televised games to be able to showcase your skill set, this is where you should go. This is where you should go. And not to mention, think about this. Think about how good this victory was outside of what we're talking about and going forward when it comes to next season. They got a chance to watch Michigan just not even show up in the Orange Bowl. So now, yes, you lost to the Wolverines during the regular season, but as you get prepared for 2022, you already basically won up on Michigan. You saw what happened. They got dominated against UGA. You found a way to be able to be a very, very good competitive team. Let's keep it real. Utah, it wasn't like Utah just limped into the Rose Bowl. That was a very, very competitive team that played physical football. You found a way to beat them without having a full roster of elite-like players. So this was a huge, huge victory for Ryan Day, a huge victory for Ohio State, and the future is so bright. And I'm right there with Chip. Regardless what happens in the national championship game, it's safe to say Ohio State will be in the top 3 when it's all said and done, getting ready for the regular season in 2022.
Well, and let's give credit to Utah here. They surged to the end of the season, 6 straight wins. And we all talked about if we had an expanded playoff, they'd be a tough out for anyone. And they were. They only lost to Ohio State by 3. And Ohio State can make the argument as one of the top 5 teams in the nation. Utah struggled early on. They started the season 4-3 and then rattled off 6 straight wins, won the Pac-12 championship. Obviously, it wasn't good enough to get into the college football playoff with that many losses. We all know that. But Utah was an extremely tough out and an extremely good team down the stretch, Chip.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the run defense was tremendous. I mean, the passing numbers that we have for Ohio State is a credit to the Ohio State passing offense, but also a fact that early on in this game, they could not run the ball with TreVeyon Henderson the way that they would really like to. They could not get the type of penetration that they wanted to because Devin Lloyd, obviously one of the best linebackers in the country, but that whole defensive front did a fantastic job. Cam Rising was looking like an all-purpose dual-threat quarterback, absolutely giving Ohio State all kinds of fits in this game. And Cam Rising's absence would have been more of an asterisk if we hadn't seen that triumphant hog farmer come back and throw a touchdown to be able to tie this thing up in the fourth quarter. I just think that what we see from Utah in this game, especially coming off of beating Oregon, the team that beat Ohio State, beating them twice, once in the regular season, once again in the Pac-12 championship game. This is just a Kyle Whittingham special, and a lot has been built into trying to make sure that we celebrate what Kyle Whittingham has done at Utah, the success that he has had, leading them into the Pac-12, leading them to division titles, getting the conference championship, getting them to the Rose Bowl. The fact that they had to consistently have setbacks and consistently overcome all of this adversity, and they still went blow for blow with a true blue blood, one of the blue bloods of the modern college football sport. Really, really impressive from the Utes. You're right, Hakeem. It was a team that no one would want to play in an expanded playoff.
Yeah, Bryson Barnes, credit to that kid. Freshman walk-on, game-tying touchdown, never attempted a pass. I mean, he's going up against C.J. Stroud, Heisman finalist. B-Mac, C.J. Stroud is right behind Bryce Young in terms of the Heisman Trophy odds. So you've got two extremely good quarterbacks coming back next season. Bryce Young looking to repeat, become the first player to ever do so since Archie Griffin, who's the only other player in college football history to win back-to-back Heisman, did it in 74 and 75. When you look at what C.J. Stroud did in the Rose Bowl, set a Rose Bowl record with 572 passing yards and 6 touchdowns, 573 passing yards in this game. B-Mac, I mean, this is like a rivalry that we've got brewing because we start next season with Bryce Young. Perhaps he leads Alabama to a national title, and he's the odds-on favorite to win the Heisman, but he's got C.J. Stroud nipping at his Nikes.
C.J. earned a lot of strikes tonight, and I know you might say, well, wait a minute. He got an invite to the Heisman Award in New York as a freshman. Yes, he was deserving of doing that. But what he did tonight without his top 2 pass catchers, 2 first-rounders, he basically showcased the ability to make the other guys look just as good as Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And actually, we didn't miss those 2 guys at all in this ball game. I mean, we highlighted Smith-Njigba, Marvin Harrison Jr. These 2 guys, along with what CJ was able to do, man, I mean, think about this. When I went into this ball game, getting ready to watch this ball game, and I put down my parlay and I took Ohio State, I was like, oh man, I forgot Olave and Garrett Wilson, they're not playing. But then as I started to see the flow of the ball game, I'm like, whoa, it doesn't really matter. It don't matter at all. Because oftentimes when you lose 2 prolific first rounders at one position, and that's a pass catching position, you see some type of drop off. Correct me if I'm wrong, Hakeem. I know you're a Buckeyes fan, but this was the best game that CJ put on display the entire season.
It was.
And he was able to do so without his top 2 pass catchers.
No Ohio State quarterback had ever thrown for 500 yards. Ever.
Yeah.
Until this day, New Year's Day.
Wow. Impressive.
I mean, that's incredible. 573 passing yards, 6 touchdowns, Rose Bowl record for passing yards. Ohio State comes back to win it 48-45. I mean, Ohio State have a day, kids. But credit to Utah as well. That was a fun game to watch. B-Mac, Chip Patterson here on CBS Sports HQ. Happy New Year to you guys. And hey, for all things college football, check out the Cover 3 podcast. Look, this is one of my favorite podcasts in the history of podcasts. Chip Patterson, Tom Fornelli, Danny Cannell, Bud Elliott taking from National Signing Day to the National Championship with in-depth analysis. Every week during the season, picks against the spread. It's awesome. Insight, picks against the spread, big storylines, emergency podcasts. It's the best. Cover 3 podcast. Download and subscribe today.
Do you want a sports network that delivers everything that matters about the game? The highlights, the picks, the instant analysis, no yelling, no fake debates, no politics. Hit the subscribe button and never miss a moment.